Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another raw and unfiltered look. This time it's going to be on Ultimate Unite, the Climax set that is slated to be released on February 28th in English. And this video is just going to be me briefly going over each of the archetypes and my general thoughts on the decks and support that they got in this set. So that being said, let's start with Time Dragons. Time Dragons, I think, is already going to be a very powerful deck. It already is a very powerful deck, and this being the climax of Ace, as far as we know, it's looking to be a very powerful upgrade for him. So Time Dragons already was doing a lot, and this is just doing all of those things, but even better, and as a result I think the deck is going to get more powerful and is going to still be a solid tier 1 deck for sure. Next we have Ultimate Garga, which is the hero side of the whole hero versus villain finale, and Ultimate Garga is also looking to be a very strong deck as he builds upon everything that G-Boost was building up to, and he even has a FTK that is very easy to pull off and doesn't even require you to attack, which is pretty interesting because most FTKs before required you to attack and then impact for high damage. This doesn't even require you to attack. It's just if you could get the damage through, it would make it better. I think that the FTK is skewing a lot of people's perception on the deck as a whole, and I think that even without the FTK, it's still going to be a very strong deck to contend with. So he's definitely going to be a easy tier 1 deck also. Next we have Max Dragons. Max Dragons is dead in the water. They got basically 0 support cards that are even worth playing because Max Dragons just still can't compete with today's meta. What they got just isn't good enough. So Max Dragons is dead in the water. Next we have Genesis Dragons. Genesis Dragons got a good boost in support considering they only had one other set. They just have a lot more power and a lot more consistency to them. So I think this is probably going to be pushing them to an easy tier 3 deck for sure. If depending on how they're built and how the meta shapes up, they could probably go as high as tier 2. Next we have Link Dragon Order. I think Link Dragon Order, the majority of their boost came from the last set, but they got a couple of new cards in this set, only 2 really, but I think the set spell compared to the other card is the big standout, and it's doing exactly what Link Dragons is needed, and I think it's a very solid card. I think the deck as a whole is probably going to be a sleeper deck, so I don't know exactly where to put it because it's a very toolbox style deck to begin with. So it could adapt easily to any meta, and it's just up to the deck builder to find the deck to adapt to the meta with. So Link Dragon Order is definitely something not to sleep on. Next we have Dangerous Veggies. Dangerous Veggies, again, it's just doing what Dangerous Veggies was doing before. They got a couple of good new additions that help the aggression side of Dangerous Veggies a little bit more, and it also has some good control elements to it. I think Dangerous Veggies standalone is probably tier 3. I think with some support from God Punks, so like a Veggie Punks hybrid deck, I think that might have the potential to be tier 2, but it's probably also still tier 3. But Veggies is pretty good, and it's pretty fun. Next we have Evil Demonic Dragons. I think out of all of the decks that are being upgraded in this set, I think Evil Demonic Dragons definitely got one of the biggest boosts compared to all of the others. So Evil Demonic Dragons got a new Belial, which basically shares his abilities with all Evil Demonic Dragons, which is actually insane because he has some pretty high damage. And then on top of which, Darkness Dragon World finally gets a Spell Null. So that's huge for anything Darkness Dragon World related. Just them having a Spell Null is actually astonishing. And the fact that this is an uncommon makes it even like the icing on the cake, because not only is it going to be easily accessible to a lot of players and a lot of decks, but the fact that you don't necessarily need the whole time half of the ability and like just generically nullify a spell in Darkness Dragon World is just going to be really good. But back to Evil Demonic Dragons, I think that they definitely got a big boost, and I think that they're going to be an easy Tier 2, Tier 1.5 deck for sure. Next, we have Messiah Arms. I think Messiah Arms definitely got a big boost. They got a lot of good cards, except unfortunately the same problem that they had kind of is reoccurring this time, where everything is so reliant on your opponent playing dragon cards. And without the promo to turn your opponent's cards into dragon cards, I think Messiah Arms is going to struggle a lot. Even though there are a lot of dragon-based decks, it's just the few times it doesn't see a dragon-based deck, the deck just has a hard time overall. But the new stuff that they got definitely helps push the deck a bit further, and I think with the promo, it's definitely a solid Tier 3 deck. Next we have Legend Dragons. So Legend Dragons was already pretty good, and this set gave them not only a really good discard outlet, but another good discard fodder. And that's basically all the deck really needed, is just more tools for their toolbox. Because before, the deck was just so kind of one note, but now it's still really one note, but now they just have more tools to their toolbox to make that one note even louder. And the fact that their Future Force card has probably the most important line of text in the entire game, which is the card can't leave the field. So that is a good solid protection against Time Dragons, because Time Dragons puts it to the bottom. Well, now this can't leave the field. A lot of other cards that are similar to this, basically they have the weakness where they can leave the field only by Time Dragons putting it to the bottom. This just gets around it, and it's just very powerful. I think that Legend Dragons as a whole is going to be an easy Tier 1 deck again, for sure. Some of their support cards aren't necessarily that great, but the majority of what they got is very, very strong. Next, we have Mystic Knights. Mystic Knights, for whatever reason, compared to all of the other Season 1 Ace decks, Mystic Knights just got 2 sets of support back-to-back and actually is looking to be pretty strong. I'm not a huge fan of them personally, but I can recognize the fact that they are shaping up to be a very solid deck, and probably good enough to be Tier 2 at this point. Well, once the Climax releases. Next we have Phantom Thieves Draco. So Phantom Thieves definitely got some really good cards and is definitely helping the deck solidify what it is doing, which is gaining treasures and disrupting the opponent. It's just the only thing that they're still lacking is a good finisher card. Like, all they really have is the impact and the size 3 monster, and that's basically it. So they have to rely on those 2 cards, and then if you're running Lost World, they have to rely on Lost World in order to finish off your opponent effectively. So while they got some great support cards, I don't think it was quite exactly what the deck needed, because the deck really needed a finisher. But I think that Phantom Thieves is going to be an easy tier 2 deck for sure, regardless of the fact that they didn't really get another finisher. Next, we have Draw Metals. So I think Draw Metals, they got better support than Max Dragons, but it feels kind of the same level as Max Dragons, where it's not really pushing the deck any further or helping it do what it was doing. It's just, here are some new cards for Draw Metals. They look to be better than what's currently ran, but it's not going to change the deck ultimately. So, which is unfortunate, because seeing Draw Metals back in the meta would be kind of interesting and kind of nice. But there's so many other decks that are like between tiers 3 and tier 1 that I don't necessarily feel too upset that Draw Metal got shafted on the same level as Max Dragons. I mean, Max Dragons got even more shafted, don't get me wrong. It's just Draw Metal just isn't, it's not pushing itself any further. And then lastly, we have Astro Dragons. So Astro Dragons already, like Link Dragon Order, got support in the last set, and it was a big wave of support, or at least bigger wave. And what they got was really, really strong. And comparatively to what Link Dragon Order got, I think that their new cards are very, very strong. Their new set spell is basically everything that the deck already wanted to do. And it helps push more of a toolbox style kind of play style for the deck a little bit more than it was before. But I think that their new support's very strong, and it's going to be a solid tier 2 deck. So, as a whole, I think Ultimate Unite is doing a lot of good for the decks that they introduced in basically the Season 2 of Ace. And it looks to be a very good closing set on Ace, with the only big stinker being the fact that Max Dragons got absolutely shafted. Probably the hardest I've ever seen. So, that's my take on Ultimate Unite. It looks to be very good. I don't know if it could replicate the sales of S-CBT03 because those sales were actually insane. The sets basically sold out everywhere. All of the high rarity cards sold extra fast on the secondary market, and even with people spiking the prices up, like, it still was selling. So it's just, I don't know if this set can replicate that fire, but it's looking to be a very strong set. So with all of that being said, I hope you enjoyed this kind of content. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell me what your thoughts are about the set and the decks it's supporting in the comments below. And as such, I will see you in the next video.